Tom and Jamie talking about stuff. Talking stuff all day and all night. We're gonna talk and we're gonna listen. It's Tom and Jamie, yeah. Hello.
Hi there, guys.
We're back, and today we come to you from a field.
We're live out here, Stanmer Park. Nipples out to God.
I haven't got my nipples out yet.
Not yet. What are we going to talk about today?
We were going to talk about just little family stuffs, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Little family gatherings, members of the family.
Family moments.
Bad ones, good ones. The
Silly
racists.
ones. Oh yeah, wow. Where do you want to start?
I want to start with something that my granddad said the other day, just because it's recent, it's on my mind. It was a big family moment. And we were at a family dinner, and it's not often that my family get very whimsical, so I was trying to sort of bring a whimsical vibe to the table. And I just asked my granddad, if you came back as were reincarnated as an animal, what would you be?
What did he say?
And he said something very sweet at the start. He said, if I came back, I'll just come back as anything so long as I could protect my wife. And that was really sweet, and everyone went, ah. And then he said, if I came back as a woman though, I'd be an absolute tart.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was quite beautiful. And there's something interesting here actually, because he never really talks about it. I don't think I've ever heard about it from him. But when he was younger, his mum really wanted to have a daughter, and out came him, a boy. And she used to dress him up in girls' clothes up until about the age of 5. And
Splendid.
Yeah, I often wonder how that's affected his perception of gender, because now he's quite a masculine old guy, but get a few drinks down him,
Little tart. Yeah.
he's a little tart.
That's beautiful.
I think
You,
he's definitely got a feminine side.
How much have you known him throughout your life? How well do you know him?
Well, old Grandad Bob, I've known him pretty well. We've dipped in and out of closeness. We never really hang out one-on-one, but I was actually watching some old tape videos back the other day, and he was incredibly sensitive with me as a child. He was very very fun and very caring, and that feminine side of him really showed.
Do you think he's a role model at all?
Oh, totally. I mean, he used to be in a band in the late 50s. Robbie, what's his name? Bobby James and the Salmons. I can't remember what it's called now.
That's a good name.
Bobby James and the Boys. That's what it is. He used to love the Shadows and sort of Hank Marvin and stuff like that.
Cool.
And he was the guy who taught me guitar, really. He taught me an old Shadows song, House of the Rising Sun.
That's a tune.
That kind of shit.
I didn't know either of my granddads that well. One because of dementia and the other one because of death. But the one that I knew less, I only had a few interactions I can remember with him. Cyril Broughton.
Was that the dementia one or the death
No,
one?
that's the deaf one.
Yeah.
But we didn't live that close, and he
Okay.
died when I was maybe 10 or something, so I just didn't really see him much or have many memories as a young child. But the one thing I do remember, amazing humour he had, was I went to him practically on his deathbed, I think in his last week, to the home he was in, and he didn't say much, just kind of God bless you and how you doing kind of stuff. He was a religious man, and as I was leaving I said, see you soon, Grandad. And he went, you're optimistic, ducky. Quite a northern man.
I love that.
It's just such an amazing wit on your deathbed.
Yeah, I love that kind of thing. It's good that he had that, a fighter till the end.
And it's remained as my like one true memory of him. Just that
Wow.
sometimes you just remember someone's wit. I think wit often defines.
And did you see him again?
No, he was right.
Wow.
But he could have said nothing. He could have said yeah. Like, I guess if he was wanting to protect my childlike perception of things, he would have just said yeah, you will, or just given me a hug. But I just love that he couldn't resist that little quip.
I think it's great to be witty, especially when it comes to matters such as that. A dark wit is one of my favourites. I think it's a great way of processing the world.
Definitely feels like a big deal in British culture.
Oh yeah.
It's always
That's true.
been there.
More so in the north, I guess. If you'd
Yeah.
explain your granddad.
But then, I mean, from a young age, I was educated on like Sod's Law and stuff. I remember being fascinated by that as a kid. That something would go wrong, or my mum would expect something to go wrong, and she'd say, "Oh, well, Sod's Law, it won't happen." Or, "Well, that's Sod's Law." And I would always say, "What is that? Is that like the normal law? What's a sod?" And then they don't really know how to explain what a sod is to a kid. But I've always thought that's such an English thing to say something Sod's Law.
Sod's Law and hindsight. I don't know what that's all about. Something
Hindsight?
about beans.
Beans? No, it's just
Heinz beans.
No, it's nothing to do with beans.
Hindsight. Oh
Hindsight, yeah.
I always kind of thought it was hindsight.
What, as in when you're...
Hindsight.
When you've had a lot of beans and you get a certain perception,
Yeah.
or like you've got the can of beans in your sights. You've got the hindsight.
Both at the same time.
No, it just means looking backwards. Hindsight. Like behind sight.
But it's not really,
Could be connected to deers or something, couldn't it?
Hindsight.
Hind.
Why deers? Oh, because they're
it's
behind.
a deer. No. Isn't there the name for a deer or a stag or something in Old English? Hind.
Hind?
Yeah, they're like the golden hind.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think Henry VIII's time they called them hinds.
Oh, you teach me something new every day.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was sort of embarrassing.
Have you got any good auntie and uncles stories?
Ooh, well, I've got one uncle and I've got one auntie. The uncle's nice, he's a nice bloke.
What's his name?
Uncle Al.
It's funny how it's
Uncle
always
Al.
uncle as a preface, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be Uncle Al.
I've got Uncle Nigel.
Uncle Nigel, what's he saying?
He's an amazing character. 6'5", I believe.
Tall
Double
bloke.
bassist.
Oh, wow.
Bit of a rebel in his youth, but in his own kind of way. Was a
Okay.
fisherman as a boy, a fisher boy perhaps.
Wow.
Learnt jazz. Did some work, saved up to buy a jazz bass. Travelled around America at the age of 17. Made a couple of little records of people and met loads of musicians. Was an absolute adrenaline junkie. Was really into base jumping, paragliding, and did loads of illegal jumps off buildings in the middle of the night.
Wow.
But he said he packed it in because not only did he have some accidents, like he went straight into a cliff face once and mashed up his leg, but he was base jumping, I think in Berlin, but he was off this building in the middle of the night, super dangerous and obviously illegal, and they couldn't really light it up that much or make it that obvious.
Yeah.
And he got to the bottom, all rushing off the adrenaline, waited a few moments for his friend to land next to him, and he did, but without the parachute
Oh my
bit.
God.
Literally saw his friend fall at like whatever it is, 60 miles an hour and splat, and couldn't really do much other than leg it because it's prisonable offence base jumping.
He died, the friend.
Yeah, he just hit the ground.
Oh my
Parachute didn't
God.
release or whatever they do.
That's quite a harrowing
It's
story.
super harrowing, yeah. But he's lived a crazy life, and he's living in Leeds, working for a jazz music label.
Wow.
Definitely an inspiration and a role model in many ways.
Oh, my uncle's quite a quiet fellow in comparison.
What does he spend his time doing?
I don't know. I've got no idea what he does. He's just a very quiet man. He's very good-natured, but he doesn't really say too much about what's happening for him. But he's just moved to Norway, actually. and I think it might give him a new lease of life. He's got a lake in his back garden. Well, as in his back garden, just goes onto a lake. It's not his lake. It's not a private lake. That would be fucked.
It's like some kind of lord of Norway. Some local dignitary.
I have come to reign.
Yeah. Why Norway?
It's something to do with work. But I think it suits him. I think they've got quite a simple way of life out there. I said, it's really expensive, isn't it? And he said, no, actually, just alcohol's really expensive. And other such luxuries are really expensive. But doing your food shop's actually quite cheap. So I think that says something about them. You know, how they're doing it over there.
Maybe that would almost be better here as well.
Oh yeah, I think it would be good in a lot of places. Actually no, but I like to have a drink, so you know.
True.
Let's keep it on the cheap side. Well, it's already going that way anyway, it's so expensive. But it's funny that you said that base jumping story about your uncle, because my granddad Bob, the geezer I was talking about in the first place, he's got a great story. Him and his mates, they were about 40 at the time, had 2 kids already, my dad and his brother, and they just bought a hand glider from the shop.
Yeah.
Read the instruction manual.
As you do.
Climbed up to Stenning Bowl, not far from here, and just fucking ran off a cliff, didn't they? Well, not a cliff, a hill, a steep hill.
Yeah. What happened?
Well, my granddad, he survived. He was alright. But he did... I mean, I can never replicate his story as well as he tells it, you know. But I just remember him saying, I was just going up and up and up and up. And it got to the point where my car looked like an ant. I could see my car down there. And he said he'd read something in the instruction manual about how to start going down. I think he said, you know, you've got to spread your arms wide or something like that. He said, I was spreading my arms wide and I just kept going up and up and up and up. Eventually he came down. So it's all right. He said he spoke to a local afterwards. And he said, how are the winds today? And my granddad was like, I don't have a fucking clue. Got no idea how to do this. And the bloke said, you're crazy. You've got a death wish. This particular part is like some kind of wind tunnel. Some kind of wind thing was going on, which meant that it was a really dangerous place to do that kind of thing.
Wow.
And all 3 of them were fine. But one of them didn't run off with enough speed, and so he just tumbled down the hill. Quite funny.
What a fool. It's funny that we do all these things for the rush of it.
I've never been into that kind of thing. I've never liked roller coasters.
I like roller coasters, but I'm not jumping off of buildings.
I'd be up for the sort of more gentle kind of flying, you know. You see them on the South Downs sometimes on a particular day.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be meditative.
Yeah, just where they're just gliding, you know, and they're not. It's not where you hold on to something. It's where you sort of sit in a little seat and you've got that big parachute above you.
Yeah. What about your aunt?
My aunt, well, hopefully she doesn't listen to this. She's a bit of a nuisance. She left the country when she was quite young, moved to New Zealand. She lives on the island of Waiheke.
Oh.
And she's got quite a sort of drama kid vibe. She likes to be the centre of attention. And she's a musician. But I don't really like it. I don't really like her music.
What is it? What kind of music?
It's sort of like, yeah, but it's sort of folky, but it's got that sort of drama school voice, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That sort of exaggerated tone.
I don't like the sound of it one bit.
Patronising. She's got a patronising air. I don't know if she means it. I mean, I'm trying to sort of get over it at the moment and just try and have a relationship with her. But
do you see her very often?
Not very often. I mean, she lives in New Zealand, so, you know, it's like a 24-hour journey.
It's true.
The last time I saw her, I think, was in the summer, and she seemed to have calmed down a bit, but her and my mum squabble like nothing. Oh, it's awful.
That's it.
What about your auntie? You got one?
I've got 2 of them, yeah. Yeah, I don't really have any good stories about them. They're just nice people.
Yeah, it's kind of like my uncle. Well, in many ways, that's good, really. I mean, I'm sure they both have lots of stories, but I think it's the kind of thing that you just don't often hear. And this kind of comes back to the topic of family gatherings. It's a gathering where it can become quite hard to go beyond the surface level chat, I think.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a quieter person. It's sort of like, your Uncle Nigel's will take the reins and start telling some mad story.
He loves it.
But actually, got to give some space for the others to pipe up.
Yeah, I guess you don't choose family, and that becomes really apparent when everyone gets together.
Oh yeah.
It's just like a kind of like weird, like, roulette of random souls. I guess there's similarities.
Well, they sometimes they feel more random and sometimes they feel less random.
Yeah.
The last family gathering I had, it felt extremely connected, actually. It felt like quite a milestone. But I think there's a certain sort of active participation you have to do, especially as a young person, to stop the conversation drifting to just some finance shit or something. I don't know if that happens with your family.
Oh, it does, it does. Yeah, I mean,
all the men chime in on the finances.
They do. I'm in a much better perspective with it all now, but I remember being 18 and being taken off to see some family at Christmas.
I thought you were going to say taken off to sea.
Yeah,
held you captive on a boat.
I was kidnapped in the Bermuda Triangle by a gang of angry salesmen.
Angry aunties.
Yeah. Birthday cards and everything. No, I went to Christmas. I said, hello, Christmas. So I was in the car to see the family, and I just said to my dad, why are we doing this? Maybe my perspectives were all different at 18. But he just said, what do you mean? We're going to go and see your family? And I was like, well, I don't really want to go and see them. It's quite boring. Can't we do something else? I don't feel very obliged to do it. And he just had quite a big go at me.
Yeah.
Quite reasonably, in retrospect. Just said, like, what are you talking about? This is your family. This is a big deal. You got to see them. I think with age, that all becomes more important and necessary. But there have been times in my youth when it was just this annoying thing that had to happen. Where there'd be awkward silences and how's school going and what are you doing for money these days? All these kind of questions.
Classic questions right there. Well, I think it's quite a Western thing, I was actually watching this documentary once about people who live to 100. I can't remember what it's called. But they were looking at all the different places in the world where people live beyond 100 years old and sort of what factors might be influencing that longevity. And one of the factors seemed to be families who stick really close together.
Fascinating.
And in a lot of Asian countries, I think it was Singapore, where they were saying that a lot of parents and children sort of live together. You have your mum in your flat above you, or a little flat in the garden, or something like that. Keep them close, look after them. And I think we've lost that attitude in the West.
Totally. Well, we all live miles away from each other normally and lead completely different lives.
Yeah, I mean, there's even people want to get away actively, and
Yeah.
I wonder what fostered that attitude.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been a much simpler and in many ways more beautiful time when people all lived in the same house with one big family and you spent all your spare time with them, heard all the stories from your grandparents. Probably would have had a lot of education like that.
Yeah, well, it might seem like a simplistic answer, but I mean, I think it's definitely a truthful one. It's just capitalism, really, isn't it? I mean, I used to see my dad every evening when he got home from work. But he's tired, he wants to have a drink. He's not an alcoholic, but, well, he's sort of on the fence, I suppose. But he's not he's a good guy.
Yeah, it's
but it's sort of like, he just wants to come in, plonk himself down, have a drink, watch the telly. I don't blame him. He's been at work all day, trying to fend for us. But I think that could definitely influence a sort of, less intimate bond.
Yeah. And I guess with capitalism comes the age of the individual, and individualism being such a big deal.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And I guess the idea of a family that sticks together, or a community that's a family, is the opposite of the individual. It's the collective. Which is just a thing about, like, bringing it back to the West. I mean, we're individuals in the West, and they're collectivists in the East, historically. And I guess the echoes of collectivism and the still, like, ringing notes of collectivism in the East are bringing families closer together, whereas ours are pushing them apart.
I think that's it. It's like my housemate. He's from Vietnam. Well, he's half Vietnamese. But he's expected to be so close with his family. He's always popping off every other weekend to go to London for a Vietnamese dinner with them. And
beautiful.
You know, I think it is something that should be fostered, because really they are at the root of our social circles. They're the first people we ever saw, first people we ever talked with.
They're also the roots of all trauma and, like, emotional development. So it's so important to keep a good relationship with your family, just because it'll be much easier to work through any issues that you have, or any things that you need to process from your childhood.
I agree. Look, there's a grasshopper. No, you're looking in the wrong place.
Where is it?
It's on your jacket.
Beautiful.
Just there. Oh, look, there he goes.
Oh, just like that.
Apologies for mine and Jamie's sniffles today. We are sat in a very grassy, polleny field, and the hay fever's kicking in for both of us.
Yeah, it's definitely coming to you through a lens of blurry, bodily fluidy haze. But it's a beautiful day.
Have you had any really bad arguments with your family?
Just with my sister that's 2 years older than me.
Okay.
And only really when we were younger.
Yeah, okay, so not at there's never been someone kicking off at the family gathering?
Not as far as I can remember. It's a fairly undramatic collection of people.
Classic bit of English repression, eh?
Well, all of the kind of drama would have come from my little pocket of the family, with,
right,
like, my brother and his mental health. I'm sure there were a few moments when he was kicking off about something and everyone had to deal with it. But yeah, me and my sister would fight, and I've still got a couple of scars of scratches from our childhood fights. I made a petition as a quite pretentious 9-year-old. I made, like, a bit of paper that said petition, and it was like I needed everyone's signatures, and it was to stop my sister Corinne from using her nails on my face, to stop her scratching me.
Oh, you don't need a petition for that, mate.
Well, no, I obviously didn't, but
hell.
I clearly thought I did. I'd found out what it was and I wanted to do it. But we'd have a little fallout. I'd push her, or, like, give her a little, like, childlike punch, and then she'd just, like, slash me across the face. Still got one, like,
savage
line on my forehead where she went so deep I was bleeding for a while.
Wow.
Those sharp little claws.
Oh, I've got so many things to say now. This is a really interesting topic. I'm glad we chose this one. Well, it's good that you didn't have any big family fallouts, but
Not yet.
it is an extremely triggering space, I think. Like, it's such a classic thing for families to fall out at these kind of gatherings. And I wonder why that is. I almost see it as you see bits of yourself reflected that you might not like in your family.
Yeah.
They're kind of mirrors. Strange mirrors of yourself. And
Definitely. And of your past. I always find when I spend time with my family for even just over 24 hours, but especially over a week or 2 weeks, I just revert to a very old part of myself.
oh yeah.
Or, like, emotionally speaking, I become somewhat of a child again and have the same dynamics of, like, trying to get attention from a certain parent, or of contesting something that a sibling said.
Totally,
I
yeah.
act out in strange patterns that aren't my patterns anymore.
I'm straight back into the teenage 14-year-old, grumpy, moody, But I think it's good to sit with that though, and maybe learn from it, because maybe there's some unresolved stuff from that age that you keep going back to, you know.
Yeah, it's true.
My sister used to be the argumentative one, which I fully understand now. I mean, she wasn't out of the closet at the time, but she's always been a gay woman, and she's always been very left-wing. And my family, they teeter around the centre, but some of the grandparents are a lot more right. Not in their actual beingness. I think this is the thing with a lot of grandparents in England. Not to generalise, but it seems like it's the case with mine, that they're generally, in their way of being and their way of interacting with other people that are gay or, you know, people of colour, they're absolutely fine. And then they just come out with the slurs and the weird comments. But it's luckily they don't put that into practice in any way.
No, they just like to
not
say
to justify it, because it's still awful.
It does make
but
me
it is
wonder
all talk. It's all bark and no bite, you know.
I guess we're lucky though. We're speaking from a privileged position in the sense that for us that is true. But I'm sure that.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure that there's plenty of older people that are a bit more action as well. I mean, there's always one old guy at a protest that's got the opposite perspective and is very loud about it.
Oh yeah. Well, my granddad has started. He's part of a sort of activist group.
For the right wing?
Well,
that's not
I
good.
can't quite work out whether it's right wing or if it's left wing. I think it's quite hilarious.
Bit of a difference.
It's about the ULEZ cameras. Do you know about those in London?
Is that why I don't drive and I don't like London? But is that cars?
Yeah, it's cars, yeah. It's the ultra-low emission zone.
Oh, so they're stopping you.
They've put in these cameras, and if you've got an old car and you go through the zone, they fine you. And my granddad is part of a group called the Blade Runners,
Beautiful.
who find the cameras and then vandalise them.
That's not left or right wing.
I think, if anything, it's actually left-wing.
Yeah, legend.
I think the ULEZ ban is actually extremely sort of classist, because people of working class families who can't afford to get rid of their car and get a bloody new one are then being fined for driving it around. I mean, it's nonsensical to me. I mean, they should just put a ban on old cars being sold from actual sort of traders and stuff.
That's a bit of a crazy coalition of left and right, because it's on one level it's left wing in its essence, because they're saying that they're attempting to reduce emissions. Like, at least it's like supposed to be for some environmental cause.
I think it's one of those greenwashing situations, you know.
Yeah, well, like you're saying, on the actual surface of it, it's actually quite discriminatory against people that can't just afford to get an electric car because they don't want to be fined.
Yeah, it's bad.
Like it's
bad.
It's what is it? A sheep in wolf's clothing? A wolf in sheep's clothing?
Oh yeah, exactly.
A badger in a chicken's hat.
Well, big up Grandad. Keep going and vandalise those motherfuckers.
Sort it out, Grandad. Yeah, what was I going to say about family? You've got one sister.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so she was the argumentative one. She used to pop off at the family gatherings quite a lot. But like I said, I understand why. In many ways, she paved the way for the tolerance that my grandparents now have for younger people and their viewpoints.
That's good.
I feel very privileged to have just fallen into that path that she had so ardently carved.
Yeah, someone has to speak up and say these things.
It's true.
I mean, it's hard to challenge someone when you feel like they've decided who they are and what they believe. My last Christmas I spent with my grandma. She was there for a few days, and we were making nice conversation, and she was asking big questions. She's an amazing conversationalist, very fine mind, but at one point she just started talking about England, and I thought, here we go, what's she going to say now? And she did come out with something a bit off.
Go on.
Well, she was saying about what it used to look like and what it used to be like. And then she took a bit of a pause, and I could feel some kind of like slightly xenophobic burp brewing. and she just said, I just can't understand why there's so many Muslims now.
Wait, who's this? Your grandma?
My grandma, yeah.
Right, yeah, I thought it was your sister for a
No,
second.
let's make that clear. No, it's the one that's from a very different period of history.
Okay.
But I just didn't know what to say, really. I mean, I didn't just let it slide. I said, like, well, come on, Grandma. They just have got home here, and it's all nice. And, like, it doesn't really belong to us. We've got to share everything, and it's nice. And there's a lovely cross-pollination of culture, and it's really good that there's more acceptance in certain groups now and all these things. But I just don't think any of it went in. She just kind of, like, looked and smiled and nodded. And then moved on.
Yeah, it's interesting with the grandparents. I had one really profound experience. It was one of the last chats I had with my granddad. This is a different granddad. He lives in Cornwall, and it was one of the last conversations I think I ever had with him. And he's a funny guy because he's really left in some ways. Like, he's a very spiritual man, and then he's sort of into Nigel Farage and stuff in the same breath, which is really strange to me. And he was always a very, like, good-natured man. But anyway, we'd had a lovely weekend together, and he was sort of on his dying days. And the last conversation, of course, he had to start bringing out some right-wing bullshit at the table. And it was just sort of me and him having an aside. And he was just going on this rant about immigrants and kept going. And I just thought, actually, I'm just going to let you go because you're going to pop your clogs in a couple of weeks anyway. And he just went, and I just nodded and I smiled, and I didn't say anything. And he got to the end of his spiel, and he just said, well, I suppose I am a selfish git, really.
Yeah, that's great.
And we just both burst into laughter. And I think he heard himself, because someone gave him the space to hear himself.
Yeah, that's so important.
And he came to his own realisation, and I think that was really beautiful. Of course, it can't always be like that. We need people to speak out. But I love that moment.
Yeah, and I guess even though on the surface you thought, oh, it's just easier if I don't try and change his mind now because it's only going to cause him harm to have someone contradict him. What you were doing, like you're saying, on a deeper level is allowing him to, like, giving him the listening space to actually think about what he was saying and not just get defensive or have an argument with someone.
Yeah, I think he was probably expecting an argument, and then when he didn't get that, he heard himself.
That's a big deal. My other granddad, I knew him a lot better in the sense that I saw him a lot more often, but he had dementia from when I was about 7 or 8.
Oh yeah.
So at the time when I could really develop relationships and remember things properly, he just wasn't.
He was degrading as you were upgrading.
Yeah, I suppose so. And in a more kind of beautiful spiritual dimension, there was a transfer of a musical soul to another, because he was an incredible musician and a music scholar. Still, his library is still intact of all of the sheet music and all of the documents. And he wrote a lot of papers, did lectures on music and music theory.
Wow.
Travelled the world being an examiner. He was paid to examine for music, like tests and exams all over in India and China and America. Somewhere we have his journals of his travelling, which I need to properly look through.
He sounds like a great man.
He was very, very gentle and mild-mannered and helpful and considerate.
Can you remember watching him mentally degrade? Or I don't even want to say degrade.
Well,
but just
as much as it's
sort
hard,
of change. I see it as the
true.
sort of cycle back to your child brain.
Yeah, maybe not degrade as much as revert.
Yeah.
Or like if our lives are a piece of string and we're unfolding the length over the course of them, then he was neatly coiling back his string, I guess. But I remember some crazy moments when he'd say something so out of character, or like one of them, to make it funny for a second, was they had this cleaner, this local type, and she happened to be fairly rotund, Had a bit of
What
stuff.
a polite way of saying
Had
that.
a bit of stuff on her bones. Nice, like middle-aged lady, I think called like Trish or something. And she'd come round and do their house and hoover stuff and look after them, have a couple of bits of tea and stuff. And then one day as she was leaving, I think he wasn't aware she was there, and he came out of his room and she was in the corridor, and he went, "Fatty's back then."
Oh, brilliant.
Which is incredible bit of spirit from him, I guess, but also so out of character. And that's the weird thing about dementia, it kind of changes your personality, or like undoes all of the work you've done in some way.
It's hilarious that you say that, because I'm thinking of a family friend I had, and he was a couple of years younger than me, and I just remember being in a queue with him in a shop. We were with our mums, and he was about 5, maybe 6, and he just went up to this fat woman, started grabbing at her fat and just being like, "Why are you so fucking fat?"
Oh God,
And,
that's horrible.
Yeah, crazy,
How old was he?
but hilarious. He was probably 5, I reckon, maybe younger. I can't quite remember.
What an absolutely savage.
But it does back up
Expression.
the case that, you know,
Yeah, it's a childlike instinct
it
to
is
be
yeah.
not only confused about that, but also like mocking it. I also remember once he just pulled his pants down. That was a bit of a crazy one.
Wow, in front of you.
Yeah, because I definitely have a picture in my head. A lot of a lot of pubic hair.
A lot of poo.
No poo.
Oh,
No.
that's good.
No. Not one of them.
He wasn't at that stage yet.
But I guess that just shows us the infantile, like, regression. Because that's just something a kid does. But in the body of an old man. But one amazing, heartwarming, and kind of almost, like, spiritually hopeful recollections I have of his regression was I think in his last month of being alive, when he was in his final home and couldn't say a word and was like hardly ever awake, and if he was just listlessly staring. I wasn't there, but my mum went to his home and took the sheet music for Amazing Grace and sat down with him on the piano, which was his instrument, and like kind of tentatively and emotionally went to start reading the music and playing it to him just to see if anything got through. And apparently he stopped her within a few seconds of her playing it, put his hands on the keyboard and just played perfectly from the sheet music.
Wow.
Amazing Grace. This is like someone that can't even use language anymore, but it just shows you that music, which is scientifically backed up, but music goes to the depths of the mind and the pattern recognition and the muscle memory. And I guess it's one of the last things to go.
Wow.
But she always tells that story with such a moving moment.
It is, I've got goosebumps.
Yeah, it's one of them. But there's a great kind of sadness that comes along with not feeling like you properly got to know a family member that you would have aligned with very clearly.
I agree. I think in both my granddad's passings, I've been regretful that I didn't invest more time into them. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. And again, I think it links to the Western nature of families not being as close as they maybe should be. There's always some kind of common ground I'm sure you can find. I mean, you've been birthed by these people.
Yeah, I mean, even just the opportunity to become that close with someone of such a different generation, it doesn't really present itself very.
You can learn a
regularly.
lot. And it's about asking questions, isn't it, as a young person?
Yeah.
What did you feel at this age? What was the lessons you learned in your 20s and da-da-da? Once you get them on that, they won't bloody stop. They'll go on forever.
Yeah.
They used to have babies quite young.
I mean,
That's
it was
something
all,
I've talked about that with my nan a lot.
just their whole perspective on relationships and reproduction and work and houses, everything, all of the key things really are just so different. And they didn't have as many options, or weren't aware of as many options, so they just did what people did.
I guess it was a simpler time in a way. I mean, they were all post-war, they were in that post-war boom, weren't they? They were just happy to have food and
Yeah.
good times and money flowing. And
I mean, all of my grandparents would have been in their teenage years in the war.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
mine are slightly younger than yours. I think mine were all sort of around 5 in the war.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the granddad I'm talking about, the musician, he joined up to the Navy and fought in the last year of World War II. And the one story I did always manage to get out of him, or out of my grandma at least, was he was on a boat and they had a little piano, a little spinet or something.
Yeah.
And he was a private in the Navy, but he played piano for the ship. He was like the musician
Wow.
in the Navy. And a torpedo hit them. And
oh my God.
he found it so difficult to leave the piano. He was like kind of one of the last people on the ship, just like terrified about this little piano. And ended up drifting around on a bit of driftwood for hours, and probably assuming he was going to die or something was going to happen, and eventually got saved, got rafted off. But when he got back from the war, the government were doing this really good scheme where if you'd fought in the war, you could get a scholarship to university, or they'd very much support and facilitate higher education, like independent of class, I think.
Wow.
But he went off and became an organ scholar at Cambridge and did a degree at Cambridge in music, which is a big deal for that time.
That's incredible. He sounds like a very incredible man.
Yeah, no, he was. Definitely was.
Yeah, it would be great to have him at the family gathering. It's sad that you never got to see that.
It would. Well, I did,
Wonder
but he
what
was just always
dynamic.
confused and saying
Yeah.
mad things.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that must have been good as well, in a way.
There were some hilarious moments. I remember there was a colleague of my parents that was staying with us over the holidays, and both my grandparents on that side were there, and he was in the throes of dementia. And this family friend that was visiting, this colleague, I thought he was a despicable character. I just found him really annoying. He's just always talking about himself, and he was a painter, and he'd sit around everywhere in the house and say, I'm going to do a painting of this object, and then he'd leave it, be like, it's a gift to the family, all these things. And one day, he'd been there for about a week, and my granddad came down quite early in the morning to have his banana and his coffee, and he just said, oh, are you still here then? And I just thought that was amazing.
Wow, I love it. I love it
Just
when
such
people can just be direct
Yeah.
like that. Brilliant.
It just really stumps people. They're not used to such boldness. But he felt like he was speaking my truth. As a young boy, I thought, yeah, why are you still here? Good point, Granddad.
Did he paint the granddad and the banana and the coffee and the sodden face? That would have been brilliant.
Would have been good. I think he just went all red and left for a bit. You can't really argue with someone with dementia. You just kind of have to appreciate that they've cussed you out and then get on with your life.
Fucking brilliant.
He also, I'm still an androgynous person, but as a teenage boy, I had very long hair at one point, and obviously with the childlike features and without any facial hair, I was even more androgynous in many ways. And towards the end of this granddad's life, I was round with my cousins and we were playing cards and things, and my cousin Ollie was being really squabbly and rude and loud, and it was really upsetting my granddad because he's a very mild-mannered, quiet, all dementiaed old man. And he turned to my cousin Ollie and said, why can't you be more polite, like this lovely young girl here? And pointed at me. And
Wow.
it wasn't at the age, I was too young to be like happy about that. Like it was still that kind of age where if you expressed anything feminine as a guy, you'd be a bit pushed up against the wall and called gay, or like, I don't know, trip you up a bit or something.
Yeah.
And my cousin just wouldn't let it go. I think to this day he always brings that up as like do you remember that? But at the time it was, oh, Jamie's a girl, whoa.
In a way, it's a beautiful compliment.
Yeah, I like
That
now
he
I think that's
appreciated your
beautiful.
feminine energy in
Yeah.
that sort of masculine space.
Because through the goggles of dementia, he just saw a lovely, polite young girl,
Wow.
which is nice.
It's quite amazing. You really see people's true essences, perhaps.
I am just a polite young girl in my heart.
Not all the time.
No. Sometimes I'm a boisterous old man.
Ragamuffin.
Yeah.